freestanding garage that had a cathedral ceiling that he turned into his painting studio. Yeah, here it is. Beautiful light. And the studio, if you go to Kansas City and visit, everything in the home and in the painting studio is left exactly as it was when Benton died. He actually passed away while he was painting. This is the mural at the state capitol in Missouri. This is a section of America Today. Here's another section of America Today. You'll just see the vibrancy. I just think it's fabulous. And today, you know, especially when we think about America today and the divisiveness that we see in our country, one of the reasons I'm again enamored of Benton is that he brings us all together. We are all part of this country. The next one, please. Here's another excerpt. The next one. This is an excerpt from America Today, and an interesting gee whiz fact about this is that the model used here was Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock was a student of Thomas Hart Benton's, and he agreed to pose as a steel worker. This is one of the black and white lithographs that I used for a story in the collection. This one's called Going Home. Next one. We may have skipped one of the slides, but anyway, these next couple slides that I'm showing you is, go back one more, please. No? Okay, anyway, one of the books that I have at home is I think it's a 1969 book that was created by a lawyer named Clifton Pfaff. And he was a collector of Benton's artwork. And he realized that he didn't have titles for many of the pieces that he purchased, and he started a correspondence with Benton over several years. And Benton wrote him back. Pfaff put, I think it's 88 lithographs in a book that he got published. And the lithographs are all black and white in the book. And that he also included handwritten notes from Benton, sometimes titling the piece of art, saying the date, saying where he was when he saw the image that he put into his artwork. So what I did when I was writing the collection was, after I did the first one based on the lithograph hanging on my wall, I would look through the Pfaff book and find pictures that resonated with me, that I felt some emotional pull, and then I would start making up a story. So the next one, this is one of my favorites actually. This lithograph is called "I Got a Gal on Sourwood Mountain." It ended up in the store. The story is called "Trouble at the Dance Hall," and what I would do, I imagine myself as each of those characters. I mean, not myself, I imagine who those characters might be, completely separate from the real people they were. Here's a picture of the lithograph on my wall. This is called a chromo lithograph because it's colorized. This is the Pfaff book. So I was just telling you a little bit about my process of how I wrote these stories, and the process of writing stories or poems based on visual art is called ekphrastic writing. It's based on two Greek words that mean ek, which means for the sake of, and phresin, which means to describe or to show. So you all, even if you haven't heard the word ekphrastic before, I know that you know some examples of it. Ode on a Grecian Urn is an example by Keats. It's an example of ekphrastic poetry. The next one, please. The more recent novel, Girl with a Pearl Earring, is an example of ekphrastic fiction. It was both a book made into a movie. Tracy Chevalier has said that she owned a poster of the Vermeer painting, Girl with a Pearl Earring, and she owned this poster and took it with her as she moved through the years. And like me, one day sat down and was looking at the poster and decided to create a story out of it. So she fictionalized this young woman and put her into Vermeer's home and life. Next one, another example. This is a novel by Susan Vreeland. This is an excerpt. The novel is called The Luncheon of the Voting Party. This is an excerpt from a piece by Renoir. And Susan Vreeland has other novels based on visual art. This is a painting in Moby Dick. If you remember at the beginning of Moby Dick, the Spouter Inn, in the very first chapter, Ishmael walks into the Spouter Inn and he is taken by a painting on the wall that is like this, that's pretty chaotic, and he studies it and he's troubled by it, and he can't really figure out what he sees. It's mentioned in the first chapter and then described in more detail in chapter 3, and what Ishmael ends up seeing is a whale impaled on 3 mastheads of a whaling vessel. And there's a real sense of foreboding as Ishmael looks at this painting, which is a theme certainly that's carried out through Melville's novel. Next one, flood. This is also one of the pictures that I chose to write from in my story collection. In the Pfaff book, Benton notes that he had seen an image like this in 1937. And I have to admit that I did not know about the Great Flood of 1937, but there was one. I think something like, probably shouldn't say the number, but millions of people were displaced. It cost a great deal of money. It was a terrible, terrible flood. And so one of the things that I love to do writing historical fiction is doing the research. So I'm Googling 1937 flood, I'm looking at old Coast Guard reports, I'm looking at diaries from people who lived through the flood, and one of the things I stumbled upon is the existence of a church